Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. I returned early, light rain, traffic noise outside, headlights cutting the darkness. My fingers drummed the steering wheel. A pulse pounded in my neck. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Still, something had snapped in me that afternoon. I'd left the office in the middle of editing an investigative piece, told my editor I had a family emergency, and drove home with my heart racing for no clear reason. An instinct, a phantom whisper, 10 years of marriage, and you can sense these things. I'd parked crooked in the driveway, left the car door open, keys rattling. All quick, jerky moves. Couldn't slow myself down. My breath, short, my blood, humming. The lights were off inside. The living room lamp flickered from the timer, but no other glow from the kitchen or upstairs. I froze in the entryway, just behind the front door, damp jacket squeaking under my tight grip. Then I heard it. A muffled voice, 2 voices, maybe. Laughter. And something else, a faint rustling. Fabric on fabric. My legs felt hollow. My mind hammered out a single phrase. She's at work. She's at work. Except she wasn't. The house smelled like leftover coffee and coconut shampoo. The layout was familiar, but the mood felt foreign. I fumbled for a moment, turning the lock as quietly as I could. A voice inside my head hissed, "Don't do this." But the rest of me was raging, pushing me forward. I took a step, another. The laughter had stopped. The hush was deeper, more intimate, a flicker from the hallway light. Then I realized it wasn't coming from the hallway. The glow was from our bedroom, a narrow beam under the closed door. Her voice, low, urgent, and a man's voice in response, hushed but distinct. My heart hammered so loud I feared it would give me away. I pressed a hand against the wall to steady myself. Couldn't see yet, but I heard them. I heard the rustle of sheets. A gasp. The world tilted. 10 years. 10 years since I'd felt this primal, this undone. Part of me wanted to run, vanish, pretend none of it was happening. Another part wanted to smash everything in sight. Instead, I slipped my phone from my pocket, tapped the camera. My hands trembled, but I needed proof. My mind was already swirling with denial. I had to see it later, cold, objective, on a screen. That's what an investigative journalist does, right? Document the truth. I pushed the door open. For a moment, they didn't notice. The bed was a battlefield of tangled sheets, her body arching under his. She wore nothing but the glow of a bedside lamp on her skin. He was above her, broad-shouldered, shirtless, pants halfway down. I saw their lips locked, saw the slick of sweat. Then her eyes snapped open, and everything froze. His silhouette jerked upright, revealing his face. Ethan Montgomery, her colleague, his features contorted in shock. Laura's mouth fell open. No words. My phone's camera flashed once, capturing them in that raw second of panic, strobe-like. I'd pictured a million scenarios, but not this. There was no gentle conversation, no misunderstood situation, no comedic accident. This was raw betrayal. The next few seconds stretched out like hours. Her gaze darted to me, then to the phone, then back to me again. She tried to cover herself with the sheet, but that only tangled with Ethan's legs. He sputtered first, stammering, "Michael, hi." I didn't let him finish. Out. My voice was low, cold. Surprised me with its steadiness. Everything in me screamed to lash out physically, but I refused. The moment I spoke, he sprang from the bed, nearly tripping, grabbing his shirt, stumbling. She said nothing, just clutched the sheets to her chest. Her eyes brimmed with something like terror. He tried again, voice cracking. "Look, man, Shut up." I kept my eyes on Laura. "Get out of my house." He opened his mouth to argue, realized there was no point, and scurried past me, half-dressed, shoes in hand. I heard him fumble down the stairs, slam into a piece of furniture, then exit. The front door banged. Gone. Silence. She stayed on the bed, half-covered, eyes wide. Every muscle in my body shook. 1,000 words battered my skull, but none made sense. Finally, I spoke. "How long?" She didn't answer. Her eyes flicked to the phone. I realized I was still holding it up in front of me, though I'd stopped recording. I repeated, voice trembling. "How long?" Her lips parted. "A few months." Her voice came out small, like a stranger's. I nodded, though it felt like someone else's head was moving. Then I turned around, walked out. She scrambled, calling after me. But I descended the stairs, left the house. The street outside was as it always was. Cars, neighbors going about their evening. Nothing had changed except my entire universe. I climbed into my car and sat there, wet from the rain. Couldn't drive. Couldn't think. My phone buzzed. I looked down at the lock screen. A reminder from my own schedule. Interview with Councilman Richards tomorrow, 9 a.m. A mundane note from a normal life that, only minutes ago, I still believed in. I must have sat there for 20 minutes, mind locked on the image I caught. Ethan's body over hers, sweat sheened, her lips parted. Something inside me snapped. I started the ignition, slammed my fist against the steering wheel, let the engine roar. Then I pulled away from the house, no destination in mind, just away. I ended up in some anonymous parking lot across town. It was behind a closed supermarket, and the only light was a flickering street lamp reflecting on wet asphalt. I felt the first wave of tears, hot, unstoppable. But they never fully came. Just a single stinging line of moisture down my cheek, then a numbness. I stared ahead, hearing the echo of that moment. Her gasp, the hush of sheets, his stammer. Finally, I forced myself to check the footage. My phone battery was low, but I had enough power. The video played for about 5 seconds. The lamp's glow, the bed, their tangled limbs. Her expression. My voice telling him to leave. My voice so calm it almost frightened me. I saved it to a secure folder. Then I locked the phone and threw it onto the passenger seat. Breathed. My mind roiled with 1,000 questions, but I found no answers. When I got home hours later, the bedroom door was shut. No light under the crack. I paused outside for what felt like an eternity, but I couldn't bring myself to open it again. Instead, I walked into my daughter's room. She was asleep, softly breathing in her toddler bed, her stuffed giraffe clutched under one arm. My heart clenched so tight it hurt. I stood there, in the dark, listening to the small, steady rhythm of her breath. My wife was feet away behind another door, but we might as well have been continents apart. Eventually, I retreated to the guest room. Slept in my jeans. Couldn't close my eyes for hours, kept replaying it, every detail. The worst part, she never apologized. She never cried out, "I'm sorry," or tried to explain. She just looked at me, stunned. Perhaps that was everything. When morning came, I rose before dawn, showered in cold water, hoping it'd wake me. My reflection in the mirror was drawn, hollow-eyed, jaw clenched tight. Even so, I forced routine on myself. I combed my hair, shaved, put on a crisp shirt, slacks. The investigative piece I was working on wouldn't wait. This was my life's pattern. Things go wrong. I push forward, bury the pain. I stepped into the kitchen. She was there, fully dressed for work, an untouched cup of coffee in front of her. "Michael," she started, voice hoarse. "We." I raised a hand, palm out. I couldn't hear it yet. She closed her mouth. We stood in silence until I grabbed my car keys. "Meeting," I said, as though that explained anything. She swallowed, nodded. She looked smaller somehow, shoulders hunched. But I turned away, walked out, drove to my interview, conducted it like a professional, forcing a polite smile. My sources never suspected I'd discovered a betrayal hours earlier. I was good at burying emotions, an old skill from losing my father as a teenager, or maybe from a lifetime of learning to hide doubts. But when the adrenaline wore off, I felt it like a punch in the gut. The rest of the day was a fog of phone calls, half-hearted note-taking, aimless stares at the ceiling. I texted her once to ask if she'd pick up our daughter from preschool. She replied with a single word, yes. That was that. Evening rolled around, and I ended up at a bar instead of heading home. A grimy sports bar near the downtown train station. Sat in a corner booth, swirling a whiskey sour. I flicked through the pictures on my phone. Found the footage. Watched it again, numb. Part of me hated myself for recording it. Another part of me clung to the evidence, as though I needed tangible proof that I wasn't imagining the worst night of my life. A voice in my head said, confront her. Yell. Ask questions. Demand explanations. But I was too cold to do that. Too wounded. Instead, I finished my drink, paid, and left. Rain had started again, so I pulled up my hood and trudged to my car. The night was quiet except for passing trains. The wet pavement shimmered under neon signs. I felt like a ghost drifting among strangers. When I did get home, the place was silent. Lights off, except the little hallway lamp that automatically clicked on at dusk. My daughter was asleep again. Laura was in the living room, perched on the couch. She turned to look at me. I saw red-rimmed eyes that told me she'd probably been crying. She opened her mouth. I cut her off. I can't. I hesitated, swallowing the rest. Can't do this. Can't hear you. Even I wasn't sure what I meant. I brushed past her, made my way to the guest room. I felt her presence behind me, close. Michael, she said softly. I'm sorry. I closed the door in her face. Days passed in fragments. Our daughter was the only reason we spoke at all. Logistical details about pickups, snacks, bedtime routines. At some point, I started sleeping in our bed again, mostly because the guest mattress was giving me back pain. Laura would stay perched on the far edge, hugging her pillow, as though afraid to brush against me in her sleep. In the mornings, she'd vanish into the shower or slip out early for work. Maybe she was giving me space. Maybe she was too ashamed. I felt the distance between us grow heavier every day. And yet, no arguments. No fights. Cold silence. Then her phone buzzed. She'd left it on the kitchen counter when she went upstairs to check on our daughter. I was standing there, finishing a cup of coffee. The phone lit up with a reminder notification, one of those quick notes we all set to remember tasks. It read, take condoms. That was all. No mention of a name, no time or place, just a stark little bullet point on her to-do list. My pulse spiked. She's still seeing him. That was the immediate conclusion. Something roiled inside me, a wave of fury so potent I nearly slammed the mug on the floor. Instead, I waited, phone in hand, until she came down. She saw me holding it. She froze in the doorway, hair still damp from the shower. The panic on her face was instantaneous, a flicker of guilt, of being caught. Then something else, a frantic attempt to reason, or spin the situation. But she just stood there, lips parted, nothing coming out. I said nothing. She reached for the phone, hand trembling. I didn't resist. Let her take it. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my temple. She opened her mouth to speak, but I walked away. Again. That same day, I called in a favor from a contact, a local lab tech, a friend of a friend. I wanted a DNA test, not for my daughter specifically, but for me. I needed to confirm she was mine. Our daughter. If that fundamental truth was gone, if I had no anchor in this storm, then everything might collapse. So I quietly collected a hair sample from her brush. Did the same for myself. Drove them over to the lab. The entire time, I felt like some shadow version of myself, a man on autopilot. I'd always prided myself on honesty, a sense of moral clarity that came with my work. Now I was orchestrating covert tests on my own child. The betrayal had spread like a poison, turning me cunning, suspicious, mechanical. The next few nights were an eerie dance. I'd come home, see Laura in the kitchen or living room, note her hollow eyes, her forced small talk. She tried to mention mundane things, like how our daughter needed new shoes. I responded with single syllables. Sure. Fine. Got it. She retreated into herself, tension coiling in her shoulders. I knew from her posture that she was waiting for me to explode, to demand an explanation. But I refused to give her the luxury. I wanted her uneasy. I wanted her to sweat. One evening, she actually tried to start a conversation about us. It was after we put our daughter to bed. The house was quiet except for the hum of the dishwasher. Michael, she began, voice hesitant. I know we need to talk about everything. I stared at her. She had tears in her eyes. You think? I said, my tone so biting it surprised even me. She swallowed, continuing. I've made a mistake. A big one. But mistake. My laugh came out cold. Which part? The months of lying? Or leaving your phone unlocked so I could see your to-do list for condoms? Or, she flinched. Please, don't. I need you to know there's more to it than you think. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. Is there? Did you take condoms this time? Or did you forget again? She looked like I'd slapped her. I took a sharp breath. Don't. Just don't. We have a daughter. That's all that matters right now. She started to speak again, but I walked away, ending the conversation. In the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind swirling. I'd never spoken to her with such venom. I almost felt guilty. Almost. But the image of them in our bed destroyed any empathy. Instead, I took out a black marker from the bedside drawer, one I used sometimes to jot notes. A strange, absurd impulse took hold. I drew a small black circle on my palm. It reminded me of a story I'd once read about marking a route to hell. Some old myth. Or maybe I'd invented that memory. Regardless, it felt right. A symbol of the black pit inside me. I stared at it until the ink dried. Then I fell asleep, fully clothed. Time lurched forward. The lab results arrived in a plain envelope at my office. I tore it open behind closed doors, my stomach in knots. My eyes skimmed the percentages, the disclaimers. One line jumped out. Paternal relationship indicated at 99.9% probability. Relief. A wave of tension unspooled from my chest. My daughter was mine. Not Ethan's, not any other unknown man's. She was mine. And yet that knowledge didn't fix anything. I sank into my desk chair, heart hammering. The next thought. Now what? I had proof that the only piece of my life I still cared about truly belonged to me. But everything else was in ashes. I pressed my lips together, stared at the test results, let them crinkle in my grip. Something cold and calculating clicked into place within me. I was done waiting, done swallowing my pain. If I discovered something in my years as a reporter, it was how to manipulate a story, how to sow seeds of discord, how to push people's buttons just enough to make them unravel. Laura, Ethan, I wasn't going to let them off. There were 1,000 petty ways to lash out. Pack her bags, throw them onto the lawn, harass him at work. But that was too messy, too obvious. I wanted them to rot from within. I began small. Subtle hints at the office, where I had a few acquaintances who overlapped with her marketing firm. Casual remarks about how close Ethan and Laura had gotten. Just enough to raise eyebrows. I left a cryptic message in Ethan's work mailbox. Typed, no return address. People talk. They know. Simple. Minimal. Enough to spark paranoia. Then I played a similar card with Laura. I made sure her colleagues overheard me ask her, in a deadpan voice, will you be working late with Ethan again tonight? Right in the hallway by the break room. She froze, eyes flicking around to see who had heard. My dead stare gave nothing away. In that moment, she looked stricken, as though my question alone was a confession of her guilt to the entire building. Next, I cultivated tension between them. I'd studied them enough. Ethan was ambitious, always seeking new opportunities. If someone whispered there was an internal complaint about fraternization, or unprofessional conduct that could derail him. So I circulated a rumor that a mid-level manager was preparing to file a complaint about him fraternizing with a colleague. Not necessarily Laura, just a rumor, because once it reached Ethan, he'd suspect it was about them. He'd panic, push her away, or try to pressure her to defend him. That would sow resentment between them. I watched it unfold over weeks. I saw Laura come home more stressed, eyes rimmed with fresh worry. Heard her muffled phone calls with Ethan in the next room, quiet arguments. She started looking over her shoulder at work, uncertain who might be watching. Meanwhile, he festered in his own dread, trying to pinpoint the source of the rumors. My facade remained ice cold. I was the calm eye of the hurricane, smiling politely when neighbors greeted me on the sidewalk. All the while, I kept drawing that black circle on my palm each morning, a small ritual. It reminded me that I'd descended into my own private underworld. Or maybe I was the gatekeeper. Regardless, it fueled me. Laura tried to talk to me some evenings. She'd stammer, "Maybe we should get counseling. Or we can't go on like this." I'd pretend to consider it, give a non-committal grunt, then walk away. She looked desperate sometimes, but I'd lost that softness, that willingness to make peace. All I wanted was for her to feel every ounce of betrayal I felt. Let her see that cold is also an emotion. One night, I overheard her on the phone with Ethan. She didn't realize I was home yet. I'd come in through the back door. Her voice trembled. "I can't keep covering for us. Michael is, I don't know what he knows, but it's getting impossible." She paused, listening. Then she hissed, "No, I won't just resign. I need this job. We have a child. Don't call me paranoid. You're the one pose." I heard a sharp breath as she realized I was standing in the hallway. She fell silent, then said in a clipped tone, "I have to go," and hung up. She turned toward me, eyes pleading. "Michael, can we please?" I brushed past her, heading to the kitchen. "I'm hungry," I said. "Not in the mood to talk." She followed, voice choking. "I know I messed up, but I'm losing my mind here. You barely speak to me, and I'm trying to hold everything together, but I don't know how." I stared at the fridge. "How's Ethan?" She closed her eyes. "We're done. If that even matters to you." I gave a low laugh. "Sure. Michael." She reached for my arm, but I shrugged her off. "It's over. I promise. It was a mistake, and it's not happening anymore. I just need you to hear that." I turned, locked eyes with her. "I hear you." Then I walked upstairs, letting her stand there. Sometimes at night, after she fell asleep, I'd watch her. She'd twist in the sheets, wear the same anxious expression, as if she were never quite at rest. Once, I thought I heard her whisper my name in her sleep. I didn't respond. A piece of me was proud of my new cruelty, but another piece recognized how far I'd gone. Yet it felt like justice. The day my real revenge materialized was a Tuesday. My daughter was at press school. I was on a remote call for a freelance piece, and Laura was due back from a morning meeting. Mid-call, I heard her phone vibrate upstairs. A staccato burst of notifications. Usually, I'd ignore it, but something compelled me. I excused myself from the call, muted my mic, and crept to the bedroom. Her phone lay on the nightstand. The screen glowed with messages from Ethan. Frantic, accusing texts. "We need to talk. I'm losing my job. Did you tell someone about us? They're investigating my conduct. They said a complaint was filed. Don't ghost me. We're in this together. If you don't fix this, everything we worked for is gone." I smirked, then typed a quick reply, mimicking Laura's style. "Stop blaming me. You used me." Sent it. Erased the evidence from the phone's outbox. If he thought she was turning on him, it'd only amplify the chaos. The black circle on my palm was fresh that morning. Seemed to tingle. A half-hour later, I was at my desk, half listening to my boss talk about an upcoming investigative piece, when I heard Laura enter the house. She ran upstairs. I could imagine the panic when she saw Ethan's messages and the reply she didn't write. I braced myself for confrontation, but it didn't come. Instead, I heard her footsteps pacing overhead, the low sound of her voice on a phone call. The walls muffled it, but I caught a few phrases. "What are you talking about?" And I didn't send that. Then more frantic steps. Eventually, she stormed out again, presumably to handle the meltdown in person. Perfect. I forced a neutral expression for the rest of my day, ignoring the gnawing twist in my gut that half-lamented my actions. But I was in too deep. Couldn't turn back now. That evening, a series of texts from Laura popped up on my phone. "Heading home soon. We need to talk. Don't ignore me. Ethan's threatening legal action, says I set him up. Where are you?" I let her sweat. I took my time, got home after dusk. She was waiting in the living room, lights dimmed, face taut with stress. She flicked off the TV the second I entered. "What the hell did you do?" she demanded, voice shaking. I raised an eyebrow, shrugged off my coat. "Good to see you too." She stood up, crossing the room, hands trembling. "I just spent the entire day in HR. Ethan told them I orchestrated the rumors about him. That I lied. That I was trying to pin the affair on him to get him fired." I calmly set my coat on a chair. "Did you?" She glared. "Of course not. You did something. You had to. Ethan said you threatened him. Called him from a blocked number." I gave a mirthless chuckle. "I never called him." And that was true. I never used a phone call. I used notes, rumors, but let her assume whatever she wanted. She stepped closer, her face contorted in a blend of anger and desperation. "Why? Why are you doing this?" That flicker of righteous fury flared in my chest. I stared down at her. "Why am I doing this?" "You know exactly why." She looked away, tears threatening. "I told you it's over. I told you I'm sorry. Please, Michael, you have to stop this. I could lose my job." I snorted. "You should have thought about that months ago." Her voice cracked. "He's threatening to drag me down with him if he's fired. He's got texts, pictures, of you too," I finished. The image of them in bed was burned into my mind. I forced a tight smirk. "Well, I guess you'll have a story to tell your next employer." She let out a strangled sob, covering her face with her hands. In that moment, I felt something close to satisfaction, and it shamed me. But I couldn't stop. My anger was a dam bursting, unstoppable. I brushed past her, heading for the stairs. She whirled, voice trembling. "Michael, we need to fix this. For our daughter's sake." I paused, half-turned. "For her sake, yes. But not for you." Eventually, Ethan was indeed let go. Officially, it was under the guise of conduct unbecoming and violation of professional boundaries. He didn't have enough evidence to point the blame at Laura for any conspiracy. HR discovered a string of unprofessional emails between him and another coworker as well, which only reinforced his guilt. So his downfall ended up being more severe than I'd even planned. I heard he packed his desk in a rage, threatened lawsuits, but had no real ground to stand on. When Laura found out, I watched her reaction carefully. She paced around the kitchen, phone in hand, wanting to text or call them, torn by guilt or anger. I couldn't tell. Eventually, she sank onto a chair and just stared at the table, shoulders sagging. I offered no comfort. That night, she tried again to talk. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry for everything. I betrayed you, and I know you hate me for it. But I can't fix it if you don't talk to me." I stared at the black circle I'd drawn on my palm. The lines half faded. "I don't want to talk, Laura. I want to remember. Because forgetting is easy. Forgiveness is cheap." She opened her mouth, a faint tremor in her lips. "I can't live like this, with you punishing me every day." "Then don't," I said simply, turning away. Weeks rolled by. My daughter's birthday approached, a small beacon of normalcy. Laura and I planned a party, or rather, she planned it, and I went through the motions. We invited just a few friends, mostly people with kids in the same press school. No one from her office. She tried to smile around me, tried to act normal, but tension clung to us like a second skin. On the morning of the party, I woke early, drew the black circle on my palm, a smaller one than usual for some reason. Then I stepped into the bathroom, caught sight of her reflection in the mirror, standing behind me. She'd come in quietly. She looked tired, with faint lines under her eyes, as though she'd aged a decade in a month. I recognized that same hollow expression in myself, the reflection of a marriage gutted by betrayal. She lowered her gaze to my hand. "Every morning," she said softly, "you draw that circle. Why?" My throat tightened. "Because I need to. Because it reminds me of where I've been." She let out a shaky breath. "Don't you want to heal?" "No," I said, surprising even myself with the honesty. "Not yet." She turned, left without another word. The party itself was an ordinary suburban affair. A handful of kids, a bouncy castle in the backyard, bright balloons taped along the fence. I put on my best imitation of a cheerful father, helped our daughter blow out the candles, smiled for pictures. For a few hours, I felt almost normal. Laura, too, tried to appear the perfect hostess, guiding kids through games, gently wiping frosting off their chins. But the entire time, I could sense the invisible wall between us. Our friends probably noticed something off. The forced small talk, the lack of affectionate glances. But no one commented. By evening, when the last guest left, we were alone with a pile of crumpled wrapping paper and half-eaten cake. Our daughter was so exhausted she fell asleep almost instantly. Laura and I ended up in the living room, picking at the leftover food. She poured some wine. Wordlessly, she handed me a glass. We clinked them, a sad gesture. I sipped. "You did well today," she offered, voice tentative. "With the party, with her." "Thanks." My tone was flat. Then I sighed, set the glass down. "This can't go on forever, you know." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" I slumped back against the couch. "I can't keep living in this house, ignoring you. Our daughter can't grow up watching her parents hate each other. One of us needs to go." She flinched at the word hate. Then she let out a shaky breath. "You're right. I've been thinking the same. I'm terrified to break our daughter's sense of stability. She's only 4. She needs us both." I ran my thumb over the black circle on my palm, smearing it a little. "She'll still have us both in some form." Her eyes welled up. "Don't you want to try counseling first? Do you want to file for divorce?" I stared at the wine. "I don't know." That was the truth. Another truth. My revenge was draining me. On some level, I'd wanted to see her suffer, but it never gave me the peace I expected. I just felt emptier each time. She tentatively reached out, placed a hand on my arm. I thought about shrugging her off again, but I didn't. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I still love you, Michael. Whatever you think of me, I do." I closed my eyes. Inside, a war raged. Part of me wanted to forgive, to bury the memory of her with Ethan, to cling to our life as it was. Another part wanted to burn everything to ashes and walk away. Eventually, I pried her hand off my arm and stood up. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight." She looked at me with such sorrow that my chest tightened. Then I walked out. I couldn't sleep. I found myself awake at 2 a.m., scrolling aimlessly on my phone. Eventually, I crept downstairs, out into the backyard, where the leftover bouncy castle lay deflated. Clouds drifted across the moon. The faint hush of distant cars broke the silence. I sat in a lawn chair, arms wrapped around myself. A small voice in my head kept asking, "Where does this end?" I almost missed the shape in the window, Laura, watching me from inside. After a few seconds, she slid the glass door open and stepped out, barefoot, her arms folded against the cool night air. "You can't sleep either, huh?" she murmured. "Nope." She came closer, gingerly lowered herself onto another chair. We both stared at the half-lit sky. I did end it, she said quietly. With Ethan. It was stupid. I thought I felt something new, something exciting, but it was just, I don't know, a moment of insanity. I said nothing. She exhaled shakily. I don't deserve forgiveness, I know. But I do want you to believe me. Because if I can't fix the past, at least I can keep it from bleeding into the future. I studied the faint trace of the black circle on my hand, barely visible in the moonlight. That's all you have to say. She swallowed. No, I also want to say I'm sorry for the text you saw. For the times I lied, for letting it drag on, for damaging us. My throat felt tight. We were quiet a long time. Finally, I said, I had a DNA test done. On me and our daughter. Her eyes widened. You what? Yeah. Had to know if she was mine. She stared. My God, Michael. I shrugged. She is, just so you know. Tears filled her eyes. I never doubted that. But I get why you did. Silence again. The air felt heavy with all the words we'd left unsaid. Eventually, I rose. The grass was damp under my feet. I can't promise we'll stay together. I can't promise anything. But I'm done playing these games, spreading rumors, messing with your life. It's over. She wiped her face, stood up too. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what's next for us, but maybe we can find a way forward. Maybe with time. I looked at her, the shadows accentuating the hollows under her eyes. She looked older, frailer. Was that my doing? I turned away, heading inside. We'll see. In the weeks that followed, I tried not to hate her. She seemed remorseful, subdued, a husk of the confident project manager she'd once been. She avoided discussing Ethan, except to mention he'd threatened a lawsuit, but lacked the funds or evidence to do anything. She worried about her reputation, but the storm had largely blown over at work. The only rumors that lingered were vague references to an affair. Nothing official. Her job remained safe for now. Me? I felt no sense of triumph. I only felt exhaustion. The mania of revenge had consumed me for a while, but it hadn't healed the core wound, her betrayal. Each time I saw her, I remembered him. Each time she tried to talk, I pictured them in our bed. That memory was my constant companion, a black knot in my chest. I kept drawing that black circle on my palm, out of habit more than anything. Some mornings, I'd stare at it, feeling only numb acceptance. One day, I found Laura staring at herself in the bathroom mirror, her expression distant. She caught my reflection, gave a sad smile. I never used to hate my own face. I lingered by the door. What do you see? She touched her cheek. Someone I don't recognize anymore. Someone who ruined everything and can't figure out how to fix it. I studied her for a moment. You can't fix me, I said softly. But maybe you can fix yourself. She nodded, tears shining. Will you ever love me again? A chill spread through me. I don't know. I meant it. She bit her lip, turned back to the mirror. I left her with that question hanging. Time marched on. We reached a standoff, living in the same house for the sake of our daughter, maintaining a fragile calm. A few times, we tried marriage counseling, though each session ended up with me shutting down. She'd cry, the counselor would gently probe. I'd stiffen. I was too raw, too angry, and I realized something crucial. The black circle might fade from my skin each day, but not from my mind. At one session, the counselor asked, Michael, do you want to forgive Laura? I stared at my folded hands. After a pause, I said, forgiveness is too cheap. It's memory that really costs you everything. The counselor wrote that down, as if it was a revelation. Maybe it was. Nevertheless, I stopped going after a few sessions. And Laura, for her part, respected that boundary. She was tired of pushing me. Our daughter remained our only shared joy, a bright spark we both cherished. We cooperated on her behalf. The rest was a quiet civil war. Finally, the day came when I realized I couldn't keep living in limbo. It was a normal Friday morning. Laura was in the kitchen, rummaging for cereal, while I sipped coffee, flipping through a newspaper. I noticed her eyes on me. She hesitated, then said, "I have a business trip next week. It's just one night in New York. I'll be back by Wednesday." I nodded. "I'll handle things here." She exhaled, relieved. "Thank you." She paused, then braved a question. "Are we okay?" I gave a non-committal shrug. "We're functioning." Her face fell. She lowered her gaze. "I miss you," she said, almost a whisper. I said nothing. She left for work, and I stayed behind, thinking. The house felt suffocating, weighed down by months of silent battles. Slowly, I set my coffee down, went upstairs to the bedroom. The bed was neatly made, our wedding photos still perched on the nightstand. I picked it up, stared at our younger faces. We looked so hopeful, so certain. I sat on the edge of the bed, a lump in my throat. The black circle on my palm from that morning was faint already, just a smudge. I stared at it, recalling how I'd started that ritual in a moment of panic, fear, and fury, a symbol of hell's entrance, and I dragged them all inside with me. Her, Ethan, even myself. Especially myself. Our daughter's laughter drifted in from outside, where she played with a neighbor's kid. That sound jolted me. She deserves better. So I made a decision. The next day, I booked a small apartment in a complex about 15 minutes away, an unfurnished place, available immediately. I told Laura that evening. "I'm moving out," I said in a quiet tone. "Just for a while. I need space." She looked stricken, eyes brimming. "When?" "Tomorrow, if I can get a truck." She sank onto a chair, pressing her palms against her temples. "Michael, please, we can." I held up a hand. "No more, Laura. I need to do this. For me. For you. For all of us." She bowed her head, shoulders trembling, but nodded. The next day, I loaded a few boxes. Not all. Just clothes, essentials. I left most furniture behind. The house was half mine, but I didn't want to disrupt our daughter's life any more than necessary. Laura watched from the hallway, quietly holding our daughter's hand. The little one didn't fully understand, but tears glistened in her eyes when she asked, "Daddy, are you leaving?" I knelt, forced a brave smile. "I'll see you all the time, sweetheart. I promise." She blinked, uncertain, but nodded as I gave her a gentle hug. Then I gave Laura a curt nod and carried the boxes out. For the first few nights in that new apartment, I felt a crushing loneliness. The place was bare. A mattress on the floor, a lamp, my laptop. I spent hours pacing, rubbing at the empty spot on my palm where I used to draw that black circle. Strangely, I didn't feel the urge to draw it anymore. I wasn't sure if that was progress or just exhaustion. Laura texted daily, "How are you? Do you need anything? Our daughter misses you." I replied politely, kept it civil, but didn't invite conversation. I needed to see if life felt less suffocating away from her. Over time, a small sense of calm settled in. I visited the house regularly to spend time with our daughter. Sometimes Laura would leave so we could have father-daughter time alone. Other times, she'd linger, watch us with a subdued sadness. On a few occasions, we'd share a brief exchange about bills or schedules, but no deeper talk. I no longer felt that burning fury each time I looked at her. Instead, there was a dull ache. Weeks turned into a couple of months. The space between us felt like uncharted territory. I spent more time on my freelance projects, took up photography again, tried to reclaim the pieces of myself that had been lost in the haze of betrayal. On an impulse, I finally visited my father's grave for the first time in years. Stood there, silent, remembering how he always taught me to face problems head-on. I realized I'd been burying my pain and cruelty, not facing it at all. One afternoon, I got a message from Laura. "Hey, next week is the school fair. Our daughter wants both of us there." My chest tightened. I typed back, "Of course. Let's do it." That Saturday, we arrived at the fair separately. Rows of booths, carnival games, laughter, cotton candy in the air. Our daughter tugged us between rides, giggling. It felt almost normal. I caught glimpses of Laura smiling at me in an unguarded way, a flicker of the woman I once knew. We even bantered about which stuffed animal to win at the ring toss. For a moment, it was as if we were a family again. By evening, our daughter was tired, sticky with cotton candy. I offered to drive them home. Laura hesitated, nodded. The car ride was quiet, the child dozing in the back seat. When I pulled up to the house, Laura gently carried our daughter inside, laid her on the couch. Then she turned to me. "You can tuck her in if you want." I nodded, lifted the sleeping child in my arms, carried her to bed. She stirred, mumbled, "Daddy," and nestled into the pillow. My heart squeezed. Returning downstairs, I found Laura leaning against the wall, arms crossed. We locked eyes. A long silence. Then she whispered, "How do we move forward from here?" I swallowed, stepping closer, studying her face. Gone was the brazen glow of the woman who cheated, replaced by someone haunted, remorseful. Part of me wanted to hold her, bury my face in her hair, forget everything. Another part remembered her with Ethan, my fury lashing out. In the end, I took her hand gently. She inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. "We're not the same," I said. Something broke. Her eyes filled with tears. "I know." I squeezed her hand once, then let go. "But we can't stay in that broken place forever either. For her sake, and maybe for ours." She nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. "I'll do whatever it takes, Michael. I'll wait as long as you need." I studied her, feeling the old love and the old hate intertwined. Then I said quietly, "I need time. And you need to keep working on yourself." She swallowed, managing a small nod. "I will. Thank you." I stepped back, lingering in the silence. "I'll come by tomorrow," I said. "Take our daughter to the park. You can come too if you want." She closed her eyes, relief mixing with sadness. "Yes, I'd like that." I turned, left the house. The night air was still. For the first time in months, I felt something resembling hope. Though faint, months later, we remain in this delicate balance. Separate apartments, shared custody. We've begun seeing a new counselor occasionally, though I still keep my distance. The old savage anger is gone, replaced by a cautious acceptance. We talk more now, carefully, about logistical things and sometimes about deeper topics. She knows trust will be the hardest thing to rebuild, if it's even possible. As for Ethan, he's disappeared from our immediate lives. Moved out of state, last I heard. Tried to join a startup company in Boston. I don't wish him well, but I don't obsess over him anymore either. I let that part of me die. Every morning, I wake up, stare at my empty palm. I haven't drawn that black circle in a while. Maybe I'm done carrying hell with me every day. But sometimes I trace a finger along where it once was, remembering the darkness I let myself live in for so long. I remind myself that we have the power to forgive or to devour ourselves in bitterness. I'm not quite ready to forgive, but I'm not letting it devour me either. My daughter's laughter is my anchor, her little hand in mine guiding me out of the abyss. And Laura. She's still searching for the woman she used to be, the one she lost somewhere between an affair and a heartbreak. Maybe she'll find a new self along the way. Maybe I'll find a new version of me too. Someone who can look at her without seeing the bed, the sweat, the betrayal. But not today, not tomorrow. Healing, if it comes, will come slowly. We keep living, keep breathing, keep inching forward. Because cold is also an emotion. Because memory is a weight we carry. Because if I've learned anything from the black circle, it's that stepping into hell is easy. Climbing back out again takes everything you've got.